like to get you guys participate a little bit. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
try doing a better one. But there's a lot of people that will teach how to sell insurance, and that's great, and that's something you should learn. But what I focused on myself was building a business. Was able to get licensed in 2018 and start as an agent. Did over $15 million in issued business in 2023, and then started my own IMO a year ago, literally a year ago. And we've done over $10 million since then. Matter of fact, we are about 200K away this morning from hitting 2 million this month.
That's amazing.
So super,
Unbelievable.
super cool because November of last year, we did 282,000.
Wow.
So my goal is to go over that whole process we went through, go over everything we did, what we did right, what we did wrong, things to focus on, and ultimately teach you guys hopefully how to build a business in this amazing industry we live in or live in. I live in it. You work in it, live in it. So awesome, guys. Well, if you guys are ready, we're ready, Alex. You ready?
Let's
Everyone
go.
here?
Go for it. Let's do it.
We're
Let's do it.
ready? Okay. We wait a few more minutes. What do you think? Anyone got anyone stuck in traffic or anything that they know of?
Yeah. I'll let them in as they roll in. So you're good, man.
Okay. Perfect. 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 All right, guys. So let me get my screen over here. All right. This on this side. All right, perfect. So share my screen. All right. Everyone can see my screen okay? Awesome. Awesome. So if you guys want, like I said, I like to do meetings interactive and I like to teach as much as I can and try to help you guys. So if you guys have questions along the way, feel free to ask any questions that you have along the way, and I might not answer them on the spot, but towards the end, I'll go through and catch up with any questions that you have and try to help you guys out as much as you can. Um, and I don't know why my mouse has disappeared. Let's see. Perfect. All right. Super crazy. Okay. So hold on. I'm trying to open this chat. Okay, chat's open. All right. So how many here are agency owners? If you're an agency owner, let me know your agency owner. If you're just a single producer, throw producer in the chat. I just want to kind of get an idea so I know who to focus on here. Single producer, agency producer. All right. Just give me an idea. All right. Awesome. So we got a good mix. So that's good. So the good news is um for in my opinion, my journey and the way I built my business is it was 100% I had to start as a producer. So just to again just give you a little bit backstory on how I found the insurance industry and how I started. I was looking for a business opportunity. I was looking for something that was going to give me ultimate freedom that would let me do what I want, where I want, with whoever I want. Right. That's it. That's all I needed an opportunity, right? To do what, where, and however I want it. And that was super important to me. And I was like, all right, I need to find the platform that's gonna let me have that. Because not everything can, right? And a lot of times people think if they start a business that they're gonna have freedom. But if I started a bakery, I probably wouldn't have had the same amount of freedom, right? And I'm thinking bakery because I remember my friend had a bakery at the time when I was looking at this, and I was looking at how much she was working and effort she was doing, putting in, and then years later she messaged me about insurance. It's like, how much do you make at the bakery? And it was like 30 grand a year, like netting. She was, putting in all kinds of crazy work, right? And I was just like, wow, so glad I didn't pick bakery. But anyway, I wanted to build a business. I'm looking around at different opportunities. I was looking for franchises really because I like systems. I like things that are proven that worked. And someone kind of pointed insurance towards me, and I was like, well, insurance is a great business. It's a $1.3 trillion market. And if you think about that, and you're looking at your computer screen right now, And if you look at your computer screen, you thought that was like 1.3 trillion, and you took a little pin and you poked it with a dot. If you had that little tiny dot of this screen being 1.3 trillion, you'd be ultra, ultra successful, right? So you want to be in a business that's going to give you that kind of like to me that's a hack, right? Because it's like you just need a little tiny piece, right? A little tiny piece of such a great business. Another thing I like about insurance, and maybe if you are some in some type of business where there's inventory, right? There's no inventory, we don't have supply issues. We have so many things. My friend owns a mechanic shop, and it's like when I talk to him, I'm like, how many cars can you fix at one time? Right? He's limited by how many bays he has. Like we're not limited. Like we could literally have 1,000 insurance agents working right now from home, right? We don't even need an office to house them. Like it's such a great business. So as I look and dug and dug and dug and dug more into it, I'm like, wow, this is a great business. But not all insurance is created equal, right? There's a lot of different insurance opportunities. So for me, a couple of things were really important. One is systems and tech, right? Really, really important. That's why I love Alex, man. Alex is a tech guy. And then another thing is what else is something that you would think is really, really important if you're selling something? Throw it in the chat. If you think it would be really, really important if you're selling something, throw it in the chat. Should be on your mind every single day. Confidence. Okay. People need it. Okay. Competitive pricing, trust customers and network make a difference. So in I was in Louisiana, and I was my job was to repo cars, and that was my first commission only job. And I was so freaking scared. There we go, Chip. Leads, exactly, right? I was so scared taking this commission only job because I'm like, man, what if I don't find any cars? I make no money. And I was super scared. And the company I worked with, they would give me more cars than I would ever find. They would just send me like 30, 40 cars a week to find. And it was just like, I didn't find the 30, 40 from last week. So I had, I had a file basically, or sometimes just a sheet of paper. And like each one was a car that I need to find. If I found this car, I got a commission. And it was great because I would wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I would snatch all the cars on GPS first because they're easy to find in the dark. And then when the sun's up, now I'm chasing down and running addresses and looking for cars. And I'm like, all right, this is a great business because there's so much work for me to do. There's always cars to find. And at that time, is the most money I've ever made in my life. And then there was a major flood in Louisiana in 2016. Over 200,000 houses got flooded. And what happens when a bunch of houses get flooded? There's a new demand, right? Now these houses need to be rebuilt. And I started a construction company off of that, right? Again, it was a demand, right? There were leads. You pull in a neighborhood, every single house was gutted, every house was a lead, right? So for me, when I was looking at the insurance business, leads were extremely, extremely important, right? Like, how am I going to find my clients? So put leads in the chat if you think leads are important to your business. uh Without leads, like I would have been looking for a different business. If someone was like, hey David, listen, here's the deal, I can get you, you can work with my company selling volleyballs, and our phones are ringing off the hook looking for volleyballs. I need you to build a sales team and you can make $1 million a year. I'd be like, all right, I'm selling volleyballs. Right. Like a lot of times people get so focused in the product that they're not focused in the demand. A lot of times people come to me like, I want to sell, this product. I'm like, why do you want to sell that product? Did you run out of people for the product you are selling? Like, no, I just want to, like, I just like that product. I'm like, what do you like about it? A lot of times people forget why they got in the insurance industry, and it typically wasn't to sell a certain product. It was to have freedom, right? Or some kind of feeling that comes along with that. So again, my story went over a little bit in the beginning. So I got my insurance license in 2018. I knew absolutely nothing about insurance. I started out in the field. I went door to door with direct mail, and I sold insurance. Right, got in the house, did a presentation, sold insurance, old fashioned way. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably have done that. Maybe some people are still doing it. And I did that for about a year. And throughout that process, I learned a ton. One thing that was really important to me was getting more activity than anyone else. So like I was to me is like when I started in my head, I'm like looking at everyone else having success. I'm like, I'm so behind these people. They're having so much more success than me. I want to have the success they're having. And I'm like, man, how do I have the success they're having if they have a head start? And I think about in terms of activity. I'm like, all right, well, let's say Alex is the agent. We'll use Alex as an example, right? And he's got 2 years experience on me, but I know Alex knocks on 10 doors a day. I'm like, man, well, if I knock on 20 doors a day, I'll get twice as much experience. And after a couple of years, I'll catch up to Alex. Right. So like that was my thought process. So my goal every single day was to knock out more doors in a day than anyone else possibly could because I'm trying to catch up to them. Like to me, that's like running faster, gaining more experience. And ultimately, I was really focused on learning. I wanted to make money, obviously, but like the value in the learning was really, really what I was focused on. And a lot of times, so I've hired over 5,000 insurance agents in my career, just to give you some perspective on how much experience I have training, mentoring, dealing with agents. I've helped people make hundreds of thousands of dollars up to millions of dollars in this business. And it's all about activity. Activity is the number one thing um, to help someone be successful. Without it, it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how great the leader is if you don't call it, right? So I got my insurance license in 2018, started as an agent, built my own agency, started teaching agents how to produce, helped agents become top producers, and then I helped those agents become agency owners. And that's my niche, is helping people build businesses through systems, through good lead programs, and everything else that it takes. Have really having them focus on the right thing. So in 2023, I was only working with one insurance carrier, and I decided it was time to diversify. I wanted to start my own IMO and be independent. And when I did, in October of 2023, the carrier I was working with canceled my contracts. So I went from doing $1.5 million a month to zero, like literally zero. I went from making over $100,000 a month for the last 2 years and growing to zero. And it was the time to start over. It was October. It was like October 4th, I believe. And so, like I said, just literally, I mean, it's October now, like 1 year ago. So November, we did $282,000, right? Spent way more money than I made because I kept my full staff. I kept everything. I was like, listen, I will build this again. I don't know how long it will take, but I will. So the cool thing is, the second time you get to do it, you get to skip all the mistakes that you made, right? Same thing when I talk about like leadership or mentorship. It's like, the goal is, when I mentor someone is like ask me, like let me save you some money on a lot of the mistakes that I made. So 282,000 in November, April, within our first 6 months, we hit 1 million in a month. So that was a huge milestone for us. Really excited about that. August, we did 1.29 million. I made this last month. Last month we actually did 1.4 million. And right now, this morning when I woke up, we're at 1.8 and change. So we're on pace to do $2 million this month, which is basically like, I don't know, month 13, I guess, or month 12, right? After 1 year. We did over $10 million in our first 350 days. So I can walk you through the process on how to build it, lose it, and rebuild it again. So first thing is that I did, right? So when it was like time to build this, and this is me getting just 100% transparent with you, right? I don't know anyone as transparent as I am, but I believe in building trust and giving you guys really good value. Like I value your time and I value you giving me your attention. So I want to provide you all the data that I can to help you learn something and make good decisions for your business. So November's here, our first month. I knew, again, just like I said earlier, the most important thing when I'm selling something is having leads. So when I repoed cars, it was having this company give me all these cars to find. When I was rebuilding flood houses, it was having a bunch of houses flooded that needed to be fixed. When I want to sell insurance, way easier, right? Just figure out how to plug into a working lead program. Or what I did is I decided to build my own lead program. I wanted to make sure that really my agent's book of business was protected, was a big thing, and that they had leads they can trust. So as you can see in November, we got 2,500 leads. We did $282,000 in production. Our close rate on leads distributed was 11%. Average production per application was 962. Production per lead was 109, which is lower than where I would want it to be. And then, ROI, depending on their contract level, could anywhere be 4x to over 6x, right? And for me, it wasn't about like what those numbers were as much as those numbers are my starting point. So a lot of times agents will get so caught up in their numbers or they'll get caught up in this and they don't ever actually start. So for me, it was like, all right, let me get my baseline numbers. And then once I have my baseline, now how do we improve this? Right? Because as we improve this number, what does that mean? That means we're helping our agents be more profitable. If we're helping our agents be more profitable, what does that mean? We have less churn. They want to work more. They're excited about making money, right? So like that's the process. So I wanted to build a system that the average agent can thrive, not just one where just the top producers make it. And I also want to make an agent system where agents were making money, not just being on leaderboards, right? There's a lot of times people will be on leaderboards, but they're not actually making money, right? And I see some people shaking their head yes, and they understand that. And I know that because I remember when I first started, I was like 13th in the company my first full month. And I was like, 13th in the company, I didn't make any freaking money. Like, what the heck's everyone else doing? I'm 13th of the whole freaking company, and I didn't make crap. And I was like, hold it. And then you start rethinking your entire life, right? So I won't bore you with all the data of going through the whole journey, but as you can see, we went and we worked on getting these numbers better. So here's August. This is the last data I have on this. I made this slideshow, like I said, before, about a month or two ago, but right after August. So the close rate. So we got the close rate per lead up to, we hit 21% in June. So actually what happened in June for 21%. And just understand this close rate isn't close rate for conversations. This is close rate for distributed leads. So basically when we did 21%, that means that 2 out of every 10 leads that went out turned into sales. Right? Not like, yeah, exactly. It's a great freaking number. A lot of times people don't realize that, right? So like that was really important because realistically, if the lead price is right and the comp's right, then if the agent can close 1 out of 10 leads they receive, they're profitable, right? So that was the number, and then after that, it's all extra money, right? So in June we actually broke our lead system. That was an issue, right? So what happens is, as we grew and scaled, we had more people on our system. We actually broke our lead system, and what was interesting in seeing that is when we broke our lead system, it forced the agents to work the leads they had more because we went about 2 weeks without able to get any leads out, and it actually made our agents even more profitable because now they're forced to go back and work. And we learned something from that, right? And that's why the data is so important tracking. So if you're just an agent just getting started, you want to track your data because a lot of times people will try all these different things and they won't actually have data to back up the decisions they're making, right? Which is really, really important. So as you can see, we got it to August 17%. Our average production per application we got up from 962 to 1100 bucks. Production per lead almost 200, which is really good when you're doing over $1 million in production. And then obviously the ROIs, you can see it really increased the ROIs, those numbers. So just to kind of give you an idea of how to track your data, what to look for, right? So what to look for, how many leads you're getting, what's the cost of the total amount of leads, and then what I like to do is look at the CPA, like what's the cost per application. A lot of times people are caught up on the cost of the lead when the cost of application is really what's going to be a lot more important to look at. And then obviously the ROI, because if a lead costs $1,000 but you could get 9 to 1 on your money, then who cares how much the lead costs, and just to give you an idea. And as you see, our leads will range from $20 to $24. A lot of times it just depending. What happened is in the beginning we were over delivering leads. Basically, if someone ordered 10 leads, we're giving like 14 by accident. So that's why the lead cost was lower. So we were able to fix that problem. So the real truth about insurance, a challenge, right? So producers want freedom, control, and legacy, but only like business owners really get that. So a lot of times what people do is they get their insurance license because they want freedom, but like they're not really doing anything to gain the freedom, right? All they're doing is being, I think, put someone there like a solopreneur. right? They're just becoming salespeople. They're not really doing anything for freedom, and that's what I try to teach people and enlighten them is like and it's okay, but like you want to go through the process of being able to have freedom. You want to move forward, right? So being a top producer doesn't actually mean freedom, right? More sales is more stress, not freedom. Top producers often get trapped in selling all the time. There's no legacy, there's no equity. Like you don't own too much when you're just producing. When you have a business, um and you start scaling, that's when you have success. That's when you start having a true passive income. You start leveraging people. I mean, look at any big business, like imagine Walmart with no employees. A lot of times people look at like insurance, like it's they get so caught up in like, oh, I don't want to hire, I don't want to recruit. Like name one business that doesn't spend time recruiting talent. Right now, Mark Zuckerberg is actually recruiting people because he's looking for, people that are really good at AI, and he's personally recruiting them because he knows how important it is, right? So, only building scalable systems create true freedom and wealth. And that's what we came here for. All right. So we're gonna go over some stuff. So within my career, I've helped over 50,000 families, did over $50 million in production. Like I said, helped multiple people become millionaires, scaled most people up to seven-figure agencies. So everything I'm gonna go over is like literally stuff I've learned throughout the process, right? None of this is theory. I know there's a lot of people online that talk about a lot of great things that they haven't actually done. So I'm gonna try to do the opposite and do it and then teach you about it. So here's some agencies that have helped scale. This is a leaderboard from August, which was a record. Like I said, last month was a record, and this month's gonna be a record as well. But you got to remember, a year ago or less than a year ago in August, none of these agencies even existed. And this is our production. Our production at my IMO, just to give you examples. Anywhere from 1 to 38 to 395, right, in monthly production. Oh, we're going backwards here. Hold on. All right. So section two, the three core shifts produced to business owners. So most agents never make the pivotal change, and that's why they remain trapped in production forever. So what agents do is they get caught up in producing high numbers, and they don't ever take that money and start using that to build a business, right? Or they use that money and they go buy a car because they think it's going to attract them people, or they go spend it on flashy things. And I could tell you what, I could flash a Lambo in front of you and try to get you to come work with me with a Lambo. But I promise you, if I took the money on that Lambo payment and put it on some job postings, I would hire a lot more people. You know, so just a little thought there. So stop thinking like an employee. Activity, focus, and commission driven. Measure success by personal sales numbers and commissions. Start thinking like a builder. Systems focus on scale driven. Measure success by team performance and business metrics, right? So, like I said, I showed you how we track our metrics. I show you everything that we do, lead flow, CPAs, close rates, agents, ROI, right? Again, if you're building a business or for yourself, if you're just you, is you want to learn how to get a good ROI yourself, and then you want to be able to teach that, and if you're helping agents, like you need to show them how to make money, right? Not just revenue, but like money they keep. Because if they don't keep money, they're looking for something else. So, again, back into this data. So, going from November to August, right? We had 297% growth on our applications. Our cost of leads stayed about the same. Our close rates increased and our ROI increased. Went over all that. The environment, guys. So it's really important, man. When I was in middle school, I was a pretty good wrestler, and we had two high schools, and one high school was always one of the top schools in the state. But our middle school team beat their middle school team, and the school that was one of the top schools in the state, that wasn't the school I was supposed to go to. I was supposed to go to the other high school, and they're trying to get me to go over there. And I'm like, no, like we beat you in middle school, like we'll beat you in high school, like thinking the people stay the same. What I realized is culture made a huge difference. That school beat the crap out of us all 4 years I was in high school. all those wrestlers got so much better. And because I didn't put myself in a different environment, I limited my growth, right? So, same thing. You want to make sure that you're expanding your growth by hanging out with the right people, by being in on the right systems, by being on the right team, right? And if you're an agency owner, like this is what you want to build. Like you want to build this. And there's been times in my career where I've brought on people and been a lot more generous with them because I wanted to add them into my culture. Right. And a lot of times people will look at somebody and they try to make business decisions, but you have to look at the whole picture, right? Sometimes me not even making money on someone by like in an override or making very little, sometimes that's not even the true value. Sometimes just having a person on my team to help increase the other people is going to create value. So it's really like understanding that. So here's some case studies again. um TPG Miami, we got them. Let's see. I mean, so TPG Miami started with me as an agent. She was putting shoes. She was, I always joke around. She was a shoe salesman. She worked at Johnson Murphy in the mall. And now she's doing, and she does over 400,000 a month now, right? Coastal Command, they start with me. They had a 5x within 6 months. So the path, right? So producer. So step one, mindset shift. So stop identifying as a salesperson and start thinking like a business builder, right? So one of the things that was really different for me when I first started in this business is from day one, I thought like a business owner. Now, I was a business owner and I was the only one producing. So I was responsible for all my production. But in my head, I was always thinking like a business owner. I was always wondering, like, when I was making decisions, it's like, what's going to help me grow my business, right? Define your systems, document lead flow, conversion process, client experience, right? Hiring team members. I remember when I hired my first assistant, um, of course, no one wants to hire an assistant, right? Because they cost money and they want to put it out forever. And I remember when I first hired my assistant, I was like, geez, I should have done that so long ago because it was so helpful and it freed me up to do so many more things. Scale with accountability, right? Implement metric tracking and performance standards. So it's one thing that for me to track them, but I also got to teach my agency owners and my producers how to track them as well, because you got to remember what you do duplicates. So it's super important. So for an agency owner, optimize team structure, create specialized roles and clear advancement paths. So I think it's really important to let people know what they have to do to get to that next step, that next level. I know for me, it was always very clear what I had to do. So I always pushed for that next level. Improve lead distribution, develop CPA reduction strategies, and improve close rates. So it's really important to have a strong lead system that's going to support your agency because you want your agents to have leads they can work, leads they can trust. And that could look like a lot of different things. You could, do it in-house. You could you could find a lead vendor that you trust. There's a lot of different ways, or you could work with somebody that has that in place for you already. For me, like doing the least amount of things was the best and how I got started. So other people were doing these things for me. Build team leaders, identify, develop producers who can manage others. So for a while, one of my biggest bottlenecks from growth was having team leaders. I had a whole bunch of agents. And then all of a sudden I'm hiring 30, 40 agents a month. And like, man, I can't deal with all these people. And I remember someone reached out to me like, how come like one month you hire 40 people, the next month you hire 20? I was like, you hire 40 people and then deal with them and figure out how you're going to hire 40 the next month. Like all of a sudden I got myself real busy. I became the bottleneck and I'm like, listen, I have a problem. So then I reached out to my two top producers. I was like, hey, you guys ready to start building? You guys ready to start? I'm gonna teach you guys how to be leaders. I'm gonna give you agents that I hire, and you're gonna mentor them. And then it got to the point where I was giving them too many people, they couldn't handle them. I'm like, all right, well, now I need to build a leadership team. And I remember pulling out a note and writing 1 to 10. And I was like, I'm gonna have to develop 10 leaders. And then I wrote like two. I had two so far. And I had to empty 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right. It was figuring out who those people are going to be. And then sometimes adding people to that list and be like, all right, this person's not going to work out, and removing them. Now I have, 24 leaders. But it started with just, two people that basically I was grooming them to be leaders. They weren't, leaders to start with, right? I had to work with them. And they create revenue branches, establish specialized teams that focus on different markets. So one thing that I like is I recently started a Medicare division. I recently about to start an annuity division, but I like to keep them all separate. I like to make sure, I built, all the numbers and success I showed you has all been with life insurance, particularly final expense, right? And you can make an amazing living, right? Like I said, I put, millions of dollars in my bank account just selling final expense. So you don't have to have a ton of products. And then sometimes I think that's where a lot of times people make a mistake. For me, I kept things as simple as possible. It wasn't until, I'm doing millions of dollars, over a million a month in production. It wasn't until that I had employees and staff that can help operate things before I started adding more products to the arsenal. So I know we went over a lot here. I actually wrote an ebook to give you guys a deeper dive into everything we went into. So if you guys want to scan the QR code, we can put the link in the chat as well. Scale your insurance business playbook. Are you able to grab that link, Alex? My mouse is just like not showing up on my screen, so I'm just blind here. But basically, I wrote an ebook for you guys, 7 steps to build $1 million insurance business. Um, and it's free. I'm gonna ask you for your email address. It will cost you an email address to get it. So yes, it will cost you an email address, but I hope I provide enough value for you on that. But give you kind of the step-by-step guide for that. Um, and again, so I will exit out of this screen here, and then we could check on some questions. So again, if you guys have some questions, throw it in the chat. I love to help you guys out with that. Was it in June when your lead system broke and you used recycled leads that lowered your CPA for 113 and 96? Yeah, so we never recycled any leads. So the way we do it, we don't hold any lead inventory. So if an agent orders leads, we create the leads after they order them. So basically, an agent will pay for leads, and then as the lead comes, the agents get it. So leads always come in real time. So that's their choice. It's either they're coming real time or there's no lead. So when we broke the lead system, it was basically they just had to go back and rework the people they already had. So we didn't create any extra lead revenue or anything like that. There was no extra lead sales on that. What does the team leader do in your organization? Are they exclusive sales trainers and mentors, or do they have other responsibilities? So we actually we're always looking to innovate and learn more. So where my focus is really helping agency owners, right? A lot of times people will reach out to me that are good producers, but they've never had success building an agency. So it's helping that person or the people that I already have and helping raise them up and help them become agency owners, right? Now, it sounds great, like help them become agency owner. Like, what does that actually mean? And it means teaching them how to mentor agents, teaching them what to look for, teaching them how to hire agents, teaching them when to let go of agents, teaching them who to spend time with, teaching them who not to spend time with. And really their goal should be to teach people how to be producers. Now, what we recently did to take things up another notch, we just teamed up with Seventh Level. So everyone familiar with Jerry Minor. So we just teamed up with Jerry Minor. So now what we're doing is we're doing weekly training with them, with our top people, because I want to get everyone, my goal is for us to be doing 1 million a week real soon. And for that to happen, we have to get really dialed in on getting people on the same page. And what happens when you start building and you have agencies and sub agencies and you start getting deeper and wider, people start creating their own scripts, their own training, all this other stuff. And that's fine, but we do everything. We do a lot of stuff together on Zoom in a virtual office. And when people start hearing someone else's script, what do they want? They want that script. Like, oh, I need that script. Even though the person that gave them the script might have been more successful, but everyone's looking for this shiny thing to help them be successful. So I figured the best way to get everyone bought in is get an actual sales training company to come in, help us rewrite our scripts, train us on why our scripts are rewritten, train us on the scripts, and then spread that out, right? So basically it's turning my agency owners into really good sales trainers. And the goal is, again, because when I think about building the business, I think about what will help us flourish. And to me, it's helping the new agent that just gets started. Right. So we have daily meetings, but I hope it's a meeting on Monday, and we introduce all our new agents. And I make sure everyone knows, from the new agent to the senior agent, that the most important agent in our IMO is the new agent. Right. It's the one just getting started. It's the one that's still scared, or has some fears, or doesn't know what they're doing. That's the one I want to focus on. How do I help that one win? Because when I help that one win, everyone else wins. Because when you're an agency owner and a high probability of your new hire having success and making money, that's going to help everyone out, right? So that's where the process is. So how do we do that? One, we have a good strong lead program, right? Good tech, good CRM system. CRM system, we didn't talk about CRM systems. CRM systems are amazing. Alex has an amazing product on the CRM system for sure. I vetted him as well. And then having good training, and what is good training? Good training a lot of times is for the person to have confidence that the person training them knows what they're doing. Super important, right? Because you could give the best training in the world, but if they don't actually trust that you know what you're doing, you're going to have a hard time of getting them to believe and listen. So that was super important. And that's why it's important to lead from the front too, so where you're still producing up until it stops making sense with the production. All right. Again, if you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat. I don't know, Alex, if you have a time limit on this or not, but I could ask you some questions.
We can keep going as long as people want to hang out. So we got a
Got it.
lot of questions coming in.
All right, perfect. All right, I'm gonna have to double check my calendar real fast here. One second. Let me just double check. I keep mine pretty packed, but I think all right, we got plenty of time. Perfect. All right, good. Are you currently hiring new agents? Yes, we're always hiring new agents. We bring on about 100 agents a month. That is because we were being very selective on who we hired for our first year. We wanted to make sure we're getting the best of the best because we want to build a strong foundation and we wanted the culture to be right. An example, not to pick on anyone, guys, but if we were doing a meeting, uh, a TPG meeting, basically, everyone would have had their camera on, which is really unheard of because a lot of times that's not where people are comfortable. But we made that the standard, and that's how they are. So we will have over 100 people with 100% or 99% camera participation. And it's just an example of like why we're real selective on who we hired. Now we're not as selective, right? Now that we have the foundation, we do take part-timers and stuff like that. But we're definitely I think it's important to build a strong foundation, because I always say, like, you got to watch what duplicates, right? So you want to make sure that the right things duplicate, because if you just take anyone in the beginning, you may create what I call a soup sandwich, and if anyone eating a soup sandwich, it doesn't really work out well. All right, let's just double check here on questions. Let's see here. Why did the carrier cancel your contract? You can never grow too big. Hold on, we got a bunch more questions I missed up here. Hold on. Two. All right. Yeah, the carrier didn't want me to work with other carriers. That's the simple answer for that. They never said exactly, but that was it. What's the purpose of this call? For you to recruit into your agency or help us build a system? The purpose is to help you build a system. I'm not here to recruit anyone. But just want to kind of share the successes I've had and the experience that I had, and hopefully you could learn from that. Um, let's see here. All right. Are you currently hiring new agents? Yes, we are. What is the main idea to get agents on board, and do you find experienced agents or new ones better? Great question, Charles. So I personally, most of my success has been with newer agents, like people just getting licensed. I spent a lot of time and money focusing on just that, on interviewing people that were interested in insurance but not licensed. That was a big part of it. Later on in my career, I did start hiring more licensed agents, more because it was easier, right? Because I just found the cost was lower. Now we step back a little bit, and we are focusing on licensed people as well. Uh, but we do a mix. The thing is, if somebody is licensed, I'm going to be a lot more strict on whether I hire them or not. And I just want to be clear. My when I hire somebody, the question I ask myself is, can I help this person? That's the question I ask myself. Like, can I help this person? Because if I can't help this person, there's no reason for us to work together. And it's sometimes maybe I can't put them in a better place. I think they're in a good place, and I can't put them in a better place. So I'll leave that one. And sometimes I think maybe they won't have the time, or they won't be coachable for me to help them. And like the best analogy I like to use for that is it's like it's like marrying somebody that you're not happy with. Now you're stuck with them. Right? Now you got someone living in your house that you're not happy with, right? So like that's the way I think about hiring someone. Now, I had to learn that throughout my career, because in the beginning it's like, hey man, I'll take anyone that wants to work with me. But after some bad breakups and some debt and all that stuff, you start learning, and your time becomes more valuable as your income rises. Let's see. What is the main idea to get agents on board? Do I help with the licensing process? So I don't think the licensing process is hard. We send them a link for a course, right? We'll recommend a course for them to use. But like my thing is, like, you're starting a business, and if they're not willing to spend the $300-400 to get licensed, they're not willing to do what it takes to be successful in a business. So I'm not, and there's a couple things. So I used to do a free lead program, right? So that's another thing that I've done. And I know people that I hired a large group that was paying for people's licensing. And they told me, like, oh man, we have to do it. Like, you have to do it. If you don't pay for license, you can't recruit. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't do it and out recruit you guys. But then I told them this. I was like, listen, all the money you're spending for paying for their license, take that money and spend it on marketing to find people that'll pay for their own license. And that's the same thing I did with the free lead program. All of a sudden, after a year of giving out free leads, and I saw how much money it was at the end of the year, I was like, I wonder what happened if I spend that money looking for people that pay for their own leads. And I switched my model and realized that was actually way better worth the money, right? So for me, I don't want to build employees. Like, I want to build business owners. And if somebody's not willing to one, pay for their own leads and pay for their own licensing, like, are they a business owner? Like, or did you just bring on somebody that's gonna suck the life out of you, basically, right? It's not hard. People go to college for 4 years. I mean, it's a huge thing. People go to college, spend tens of thousands of dollars to get a degree that they have no idea what they're gonna do. So for me, like, a $400 license. So it's just really about painting the picture of like the actual opportunity in front of them. Like, listen, you're gonna spend $400 to get a license. It might take a few weeks, but one policy is gonna cover that cost and more, right? So it's just about letting them understand what the opportunity is. Let's see. How do you recruit, or where do you recruit? Did you hire someone to recruit? So in the beginning, when I first started recruiting, it was as simple as two ZipRecruiter job postings. That's it. I had two ZipRecruiter job postings, just like on a job board. And I called those people when I can, but I was real busy producing, so I didn't call them as much. Then I hired somebody to call them and set appointments on my calendar. And I found that forced me to call them, right? Because if someone's on my calendar, we call them. Then I was like, all right, well, this is cool. And then I got to the point where I was doing more recruiting than producing. And I had it where my calendar was full from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock every 30 minutes. Then I realized I could only hire so many people because there wasn't only so much room on my calendar. So I was like, how do I fix that? And that's when I turned my appointment setter into a recruiter. But I realized my recruiter can't recruit as good as me because he's not going to be as passionate about my business as me. So I needed to hire two recruiters to equal what I was doing. So that's why I hired two recruiters. So now I had two recruiters. And then eventually I had, I think, up to five recruiters at one point, and we're creating about 5,000 leads a month on ZipRecruiter, right? So, and then that's where I started realizing if I wanted to scale from there, I needed more recruiters, because I looked at calendar space like real estate space, and you only had so much of it. So it's just like in New York City, right? Why do you think they go so high in New York City? Because there's no land, right? So they have to go high. So I started thinking about calendar space like just like real estate. So I'm like, all right, well, I noticed I need to create a ton of leads of unlicensed people to get the hires. But then it was like a fraction of that if I started marketing to licensed people. And that's where I made the pivot on doing that. And that's why. But it was more about where I was at in that process. I think in the beginning, I think I would still do things the same way, knowing what I know of building the foundation with unlicensed people until you get to the point where you have five full-time recruiters, and you're like, all right, well, I either have to add a sixth recruiter to hire more people, or I just have to change who I'm marketing to? Do you provide mentorship for producers not in your IMO? If so, how do we get contracted, please? Um, contact, not contract, contact. Uh, so I do a couple things. One, I have a Facebook group that's free called We Are Insurance Agents. Um, and you could ask questions in there. I try to answer as many questions as I can. That one is getting a little harder because of the amount of people. But what I did just start recently is a school group where I just charge $9 a month. And I answer 100% of the questions in there because it's small enough. So that is the option if you want to learn from me. I try to post in there every single day. But more importantly, like $9 a month, you get access to ask me a question a day, basically. So that's it. And that school group is called We Are Insurance Agents. It's school.com/insurance. And I believe the information is on that ebook. If you get that ebook. As far as like one-on-one mentorship, I would probably I'd probably charge 5 grand a month to be able to do that. I just don't have the time right now. I'm just focused on my agent. So that's why I created the school group because I do get that a lot and I do want to help people. They need those magic words. Does your CPA on your spreadsheet include agent commission or just cost for the leads? Are you using live transfers or using internet leads? Have your agents call them back themselves? So we have a very proprietary lead system. So we built out all custom software where what happens is when the lead is created, we send the lead our agent's information. So the agent gets the lead's information, which obviously everyone does that. But then we send the lead the agent's information. So the lead has an opportunity to call the person. They know who's going to contact them. They actually have a button they could click to save contacts because this guy Alex been over all over the internet talking about 26, and people not answering calls or call screening. So we actually created a button that they could click it and it'll save it as a contact. And there's another button when they click it, it actually opens up the text app on their phone and pre-populates a text message that will get sent to the agent that says, basically, you're my benefit coordinator or whatever. I don't remember the exact verbiage. So this is proprietary. We built this out. We have so about 20% of leads right now are calling our agents directly. So that's working really, really well. But more importantly, our leads are really high intent, where we're asking all the basic information, plus who the beneficiary is going to be, what's the coverage amount, and favorite hobby. So we're making a very strong, high intent lead. So on that sheet is doesn't have commissions, but if you looked, it did have like what at the commission contract level and what it would be. But yeah, I mean, our agents are doing. I've done this for a long time. Like I said, I've thousands of agents. Some of our agents are doing very, very well. And it's because we put a ton of effort into creating a high intent lead. There's always like a middle, right? You want to make like you don't want to make the lead too expensive. So you want the lead like at that right price. So we were really doing a lot of testing and stuff to get to the lead where we're at now. As far as transfers, we don't have transfers yet, like actual transfers. I'm not a fan of transfers actually. What depends on how they're created or how they're made. But we just started. We just got some new software that we're working on, so we are going to test some stuff to create more transfers for our agents. But ultimately, what we've learned from looking at data and looking at other transfer companies, outbound dialing is actually going to give you a better return on your money if you're looking at ROI. Transfers will help you create more revenue because it's faster, but the agent won't be as profitable. And that's what we found. And it's still not saying it's bad because sometimes the trade-off's worth it, depending on how valuable your time is. So that's just something that we are looking at. So again, ultimately, like everything we do, I spend hours a week really plugged into our leads and focusing on that. So it is a big part of my business. So because ultimately that's what's going to help the agent. Can you talk more about your lead system? What can we duplicate from your system? Yeah, Neil. So, um, yeah, I mean, as far as, what to duplicate, I think just the first thing is like looking where you're at, right? So it's easy to look at me and be, where, I'm creating a ton of revenue. We have a bunch of employees. I have some of the greatest, minds in this business helping me now. But when I first started, when I told you I did 15 million in 2023, one of the reasons I worked with that carrier is because they had a lead program, right? So what I did is I let them focus on the leads, and then I focus on recruiting and mentoring. So it's like looking at where you're at in your business because you don't want to wear too many hats. You want to like, another thing I'll tell you, right? CRM. I started a CRM company, right? And now that was a whole nother hat, with looking at it and where I'm at now, like probably would have been easier just to let Alex deal with that. And the headache that it caused of like focusing on where it came from, because at the end of the day, like that's a way smaller part of my business than something else. Just an example, right? So with the leads, really look at like, obviously people could learn how to make their own leads. And I know sometimes people try to compete with ours. I'm like, listen, um, the person that competes with our leads has literally spent, and right now they manage over 2 million a month in ad spend, right? So it's like you can't compete with that experience. Now as long as they have the experience and they're also putting you first, right? There's sometimes people do have the experience, but they're also just, trying to get as much money as they can for the least amount of effort. So sometimes it might be easier to plug into a working leads program, maybe a lead vendor that you trust. So it just really all depends. But whatever it is that you do, it's important to like do your best. Sometimes it's hard with independent agents to figure out how to track the data, so you can have some kind of quality control. So at least you have something. That way, we're doing that now with our editors. So we're building out, we have a bunch of different editors that we're going to use, and we're using that. We actually like one the best, but we're using that for quality control in case one starts slacking. We have something to pivot to right away. So it's super important, unless it's in-house, right? If it's in-house, then you don't have to worry about that because you control it. Do you use your CRM for all your lines of business? Yeah. So one CRM is the way to go. Um, yeah, having more like to me, like the simpler the better. I want to keep things as simple as possible because the more complicated it is, I think about as scale. So like when you're small, being complicated might not be as big, but what happens when you're 10 times bigger or 100 times bigger? Now you just made things way more complicated. So I'm going to edify Alex. Alex has a great product. Go High Level is an amazing platform. It is the same platform I use. I do use Go High Level. And we use that, honestly, I've been using Go High Level, I think since 2019. So that's probably one of the reasons why that was long before I knew Alex. And we were using it just for recruiting at that time because the lead system we used, the leads were coming on PDFs. So there's no way to like get the leads sent into the CRM. So as soon as I started creating my own leads, that's when we opened up that from not just doing recruiting, but for our life insurance leads as well. And as we add products, it will everything we want everything to be in one place. We're actually probably build out our own 100% custom CRM that will be part of our lead portal as well. But that again would be super proprietary and a lot of like literally programming to get that done. But Go High Level is absolutely amazing, and it's been a huge staple of my business. I would never have hired as many people as I did without it. That's what it comes down to because I used a bunch of different CRMs, and it wasn't until I started using Go High Level that I really was able to like get clients, like or like recruits, right? Get them on the phone, where it made sense. So what do you look for when filtering for agents? So Richard, so the thing is when I'm hiring agents, it's again the real simplest question is can I help this person win? And for instance, Eric, you're on my screen, so I'm just going to use you as an example. But let's just say Eric was, interviewing with me, and he's like, "Yeah, Dave, this is what I'm doing. I'm captain of the bowling team. I own a roofing business. I'm a mechanic, and I just feel like doing life insurance too now. I'd be like, all right, cool. Like, what makes you want to do life insurance and how much time do you have, right? Because what I'm hearing is this guy doesn't have time. And if he has no time and no experience, how can he learn? That would, I like to keep things real small, real simple. That would be like, hey, Eric, listen, I want to learn how to play the guitar. And Eric's a guitar teacher. And he's like, all right, cool, Dave, that's good. I love when you play guitar. Cool. When you want to come over? I'm like, oh, I'm just really busy though. but I need you to teach me, but I'm really, really busy. Like I'm not going to learn how to play the guitar. So, Eric's like, well, dude, I can't help you then. So I want to make sure I can help them on that. Then the other thing is, ethical. We've let go of a lot of top producers that just didn't do things ethically. Always principles before production. I think that's super important because a lot of times people get so caught up in the production numbers and not letting people go. And I literally let go our number one agent before, and it was because he was he was he was being too tough on clients. He was being too tough. He was saying things he shouldn't have been saying, and I was just like, dude, you always want to let go of a problem before it becomes a bigger problem because 100% sure it will become a bigger problem. So that's super important to know that. So those are really the two biggest things. Now let's say Eric's like, yeah, I just want to be a part timer, but I got years of experience. I'll be like, all right, cool. So let me just make sure this is straight. Like, how many hours a week you plan on working? And I'm just looking for him to say a number. And if he's like, 2 hours a week, I'm like, listen, so how much help will you need from me? Not that I'm not willing to help you. I put in 70, 80 hours a week. I just want to make sure that your 2 hours, you're not going to require me. Because if I put in my 80 hours a week and those 2 hours happen to be on a Saturday that I'm going mountain biking, like you can't be upset that I wasn't available. I got 80 hours I'm available. I'm just not might not be always available the two that you work. And as long as we're cool on that, we still have training, we still have a virtual call center, we still have all kinds of tools and resources. As long as we're cool on that, then yeah, man, come on over. But he was like, no, I want to be part-time. And like, you're gonna have to hold my hand those 2 hours, and a lot of times they won't say that, but you want to make sure you had that conversation ahead of time. So that way, to me, it's all about being transparent and setting the expectations. Let's see here. So are you expanding from final expense to more lines of business, Medicare, IULs, etc.? How do you anticipate keeping the same level of focus and intensity and single messaging you're enjoying up to this point? Great question, Eric. So, I look at it as separate businesses. Right now, all our leads are final expense leads, right? So, it's naturally going to create final expense business. Now, it still creates IULs from there. So for Medicare, what we did is we created a Medicare program to where the final expense agent, if they don't have their health license or don't sell Medicare, they can create a Medicare lead. So once they make the sale, they fill out a form. The person's interested in Medicare. It sends to the Medicare team. The Medicare team writes it. They'll get $100. We give them a lead bonus, right? Because we can't give them cash if they don't if they're not have how if they don't have a health license because Medicare is very very, very restrictive on how they do things. So it gives them that option. They don't have to take it. They own the book of business. I don't want to mess with anyone. If they sell Medicare, they could do it themselves, whatever. So now we're going to do the same thing with annuities, right? So they have an opportunity. So that way the agent could stay in their lane. You don't get them sidetracked on other things. They do have that option. But I always like to teach what I went through, and I made all my money in final expense. So for me, if someone wants to build a business, I suggest they stick with one product until they actually have a real business. Like when you could go to Costa Rica for a whole month and not answer your phone and your business grows and you get paid the same amount of money, you got a business, you could add another product. That's my thought process, right? Until then, you don't want to make things more complicated. Now, if you just want to be a solo producer, yes, it makes sense to have all these different products, right? Now you're not trying to duplicate yourself and you could have different tools, but learn one first. Don't try to learn them all at the same time, right? Like Eric's not going to teach me how to play the clarinet, the piano, and the guitar all the same week. We're not going to get anything done, right? So definitely want to keep things as simple as possible. And there's nothing wrong. Like, I mean, I could sell Final Expense for the rest of my life. My life's really good just from one product. With 2013, it was one product, one carrier. Think about that. So like up to 2000, not 13, 2023, I made $5 million with one carrier, one product. So don't really need to get things more complicated. Can you talk about how you manage agent debt and roll up? Yeah, agent debt and roll up hasn't really been an issue for us. So there's a couple of things. One is the reasons I want to create our own leads was because that's to me the leads are the book of business. So I want to make sure, right? So our leads are exclusive leads. So we don't resell the leads because that's someone's book of business. So, if you're working with a lead vendor, that's the risk you take, right? And that was one of the reasons I started my own lead company. I'm not saying they do it, but some of them sure do. And someone might tell you they do it. Like that's their thing. They do resell the leads. So that helps there. The second thing, I don't push for any particular carrier, right? There's another company, they at one point they all pushed for Americo, even though it wasn't the best price, right? So what happens with that is eventually that gets replaced, called as chargebacks. Guess what? I think they realize that Americo doesn't have that product anymore. One, and I don't think they do business that same way, and they learn through that, So I want the client to get what's best for them. So I'm not going to ever tell my agents, hey, push this, push this, push this. For my gain, I'm always going to put the client first and always put the agent first. So that's going to help. The next thing is when you see, I mean, these carriers are very good with letting you know there's debt underneath you. The minute you see that, again, I'm gonna use Eric as an example because he's been cameras on and he's very engaged. But like if Eric's in my downline and I see he got a chargeback, that there's a notice about it, I'm gonna call him up, check on him. Hey Eric, man, what's going on? How's it going, man? Looks like you had a little $800, $800 debt with AIG, man. Everything good? Let's get a policy submitted, man. Let's get this cleaned up. And that's it. Communication with them. And then the last thing is it comes to hiring the right people. So you don't want to hire someone where Eric's like, yeah, man, I got it with AIG, so I'm not using them anymore. And then he's using America. I'm not using them anymore. I got dealt with them, right? So you want to make sure your people are doing the right thing. But ultimately, you want to be proactive. So a lot of times when people are dealing with roll-up debt, to me, they're just not being proactive. They're seeing all these notices and these emails and all these things. I mean, AmAm sends letters to everyone. Like, I got a pile of letters in my mailbox, right? And that's it. You just got to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Let's see. What are the top lessons you learned in getting people to become profitable who are brand new? Richard, so the biggest thing is activity. If I sit there and deal with agents when they're not making money, 9 times out of 10, they're not getting the right activity in. And that's the first question I ask. Hey, Dave, none of these leads are answering. Okay, good, good, no problem. How many calls did you make yesterday? Well, like 20. Got it. And how long did that take? 30 minutes? Sound about right? Yeah, about 30 minutes. No one answered, right? $20, 30 minutes sound pretty easy. Okay, so you worked 30 minutes yesterday and no one answered. Like, how much did you want to get paid for 30 minutes of your time? So a lot of times it's just really activity. So helping them realize the amount and a lot of times they don't know. I know when I got in this business, I thought I was going to close 100% of my leads. I was like, I'm a closer, dude. I'm closing all these leads. I was working direct mail. I remember showing up to a mailbox and there's no house. I'm like, well, I can't close this lead. There's no freaking house. It's just a mailbox. And I'm calling my upline. I'm like, how am I supposed to close this lead? And I'm so caught up in this one lead because I paid $32 for this lead, not realizing you have to look at the whole packet, the whole picture. Don't get caught up in one lead. Don't get caught up in one bad number. Don't get caught up in one disconnected number. Don't caught up like continue to work on getting the activity. I teach my agents to get 5 presentations a day at all costs. If you get 5 presentations a day, 5 to 6 days a week, it's really hard not to be successful in this business. Maybe it'll take you a year. Worst case scenario. But listen, guys, if it took you a year, if it took you 2 years to learn how to make 100 grand a year, 200 grand a year, would that be worth it? And for me, the answer was yes. Heck yes. Let's see here. All right. What are your agents employees or contractors or both? All my agents are contractors. They're all 1099. They're fully independent. They own their book of business. Again, I want to build leaders. I want to build business owners. So I want to put them in a spot where they can grow. They can have a high comp. They have everything they need. I want them to be able to literally duplicate everything I've done. Is there a particular lead system you would recommend for experienced and new agents? Douglas, that's a great question. I've not personally used anyone else's leads except for my own leads in the previous company I was with, and their leads aren't great at all right now. I'm hearing a lot of complaints about their lead system. So I've heard, I know Cody sells a lot of leads. So I don't think he would be able to sell a lot of leads if he wasn't having success with them. So I think that could be a place to look. Alex actually probably has some people that he works with that he trusts. Me personally, I said I haven't used any other lead. It was very important for me to control that myself. But I don't know if I would have controlled it myself just getting started, right? I have employees and team members that help with that. Because if I had to like do that myself, then it probably help take away from the other things I need to get done. If you're building business owners, then what is your equity split? They own everything. They own 100% of their business. I don't own any equity of their business. Um, is my ebook there? Thanks for the shout out, Dave. You got it. Are most of your leads sales final expense? Yes, the majority of our sales are final expense. 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to see your presentation about telemarketing, and it helped me a lot in my career. Thanks. You got it, Jose. Appreciate you, brother. How did you learn how to create your own lead company? I didn't. I teamed up with somebody that did. So I had somebody that I believe is the best person in the industry at creating leads, and I made a deal with him that he couldn't refuse. But I had the leverage to do it because of the not so much the reputation, but him knowing what I was about to build, and he wanted to be a part of it. So I just had a yeah, like I said, just make a simple deal he couldn't refuse. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I can learn how to make leads, but again, you can't. Again, just using like Alex as an example, like yes, I have a CRM company, but like Alex has thousands of clients and he's been doing this for a long time, and it's the only thing he's focused on. So I can't possibly do it better than him. Like he just has too much of a head start, and I'm not putting in more effort than him, which means I can't catch up. Right. So same thing with leads. It's like you want to find somebody who's just absolutely crushing at it. There's a lot of marketers that are failed insurance agents that I'm not going to, that their leads are crap. How do I know their leads are crap? Because when they tried building agencies, their agencies fell apart. And they blame it on the market, final expense, and say you can't make money on final expense, which I could definitely prove them wrong on that. So it's just finding the right people. You might have to do some testing yourself. Try some testing, right? That's research and development, guys. You might have to buy some leads and go to work and see. And that's what we did. When I did pair up, I paid for all the leads and I gave them to my agents for free, so I could get data. So it cost me thousands of dollars to get what we have, and I had to eat the cost. There we go. So Alex has the Kaboom leads there. Like I said, Cody's a friend of mine, and I know his sales numbers and leads I'm familiar with, and it keeps growing. So things don't keep growing if it doesn't work typically. So unless it's a Ponzi scheme, but I don't think he has a lead Ponzi scheme. I don't think that's a thing. So awesome.
David, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. Again, for those of you who want to reach out, what is the best way to get in contact with you? You mentioned your Facebook group and your school community. Go ahead and drop those again.
Yeah. So let me open up some links for you guys, make your life easier. Oh, geez.
I think the Facebook group is We Are Insurance Agents.
Yeah, we are insurance agents. They're both called We Are Insurance Agents. I was trying
Nice.
to just actually start a new computer today. So yeah, so it's just We Are Insurance Agents. Yeah. So if you do a search on Facebook, you'll find the Facebook group We Are Insurance Agents. And then school is third link for my school group. Like I said, it'll cost you $9 a month, but $9 a month, you could ask me questions all the time and I'll answer them for you. And I actually built a mindset course in there, and I'll be adding some more courses. The idea with the school group is to give you guys the blueprint to build a business. So I'm gonna work on some courses to help that whole process. And then if you want to find me on Instagram, David Price Official, Facebook, David Price Official, YouTube, David Price Official, where I give out a bunch of content. Actually, just hired a new videographer, so we're looking at getting 1 to 3 pieces of long form video out to teach people stuff and get more education out there for you guys. So
Amazing. David, thank you so much. You guys are awesome for coming here today. We had a full Zoom room, and I will see you guys at the next event. Thanks again, David. Oh,
awesome.
Jose
Thanks,
has
everyone.
one quick question.
Sure. What
Jose,
you got, Jose? You got a
you're
question,
live.
Jose?
Jose, go for it, man.
Yes, we got Spanish leads too.
If Jose's mic's not working, I got a question for you, Alex, to promote you a little bit too. And David, thank you so much for your time, man. This
Thank
was
you.
pretty great. I saw you were put that Marketing Plus link up there. What are all the different lead types that you service through there? Like you have
Mhm.
final expense, obviously you'd have Medicare, healthcare leads. You have, I mean, what all kind of templates do
Yeah.
you have pre-built?
We have 12 lines of insurance that are ready to rock and roll in Marketing Plus, including annuities, IULs, Medicare, final expense, term life, whole life, and more. So you can check it out by going to marketing.agent-crm.com, starting a free trial. We help you with your ad launch, and we have one-on-one ad reviews as well. So it's a great way to start generating your own leads.
Love it.
Yeah.
David,
Thank
man,
you,
you
Eric.
rock, dude. This is so freaking great. Really appreciate you, man.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it, man. I love helping, man. So I appreciate the engagement and the questions and everything. Makes it a lot better than non-engagement.
Yeah.
Kind of
We had a ton of people asking questions. This was an awesome group. I'm going to go ahead and end the Zoom. David,
okay.
thank you again, man. Really appreciate
Yeah.
you. Have
Take
a
care,
great day,
guys. Thank
guys.
you.